And how many are you anticipating?
Again, we're working with HHS to determine that.
How many are you anticipating?
We do anticipate the number will grow. I don't have an exact figure for you, though.
Do you have an estimate? Is someone modeling that? Do you have any way of guessing?
Again, HHS, through their medical professionals,
Well, yes, sir, but you're head of Homeland Security,
Yes, sir.
and your job is to keep us safe.
Sorry, I
You're
don't
head of
understand the
Homeland
question.
Security. Do we have enough respirators or not?
For patients, I don't understand the question.
For everybody, every American who needs one who gets the disease.
Again, I would refer you to HHS on that.
Mr. Secretary,
My budget
you're
supports.
supposed to keep us safe.
My budget supports the men and women
You're
of the
the
Department of Homeland
Secretary of
Security.
Homeland Security.
Yes, sir.
And you can't tell me if we have enough respirators.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Capital Insights. Today I'm diving into a critical topic that had major implications during the early days of the coronavirus outbreak. Senator John Kennedy's tough questioning of Acting Secretary Chad Wolf about the U.S. government's response to COVID-19. This conversation, which took place in February 2020, raised essential questions about preparedness and communication. Let's break down the key points from this important hearing. And if you're interested in content that helps you stay informed, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. First up, the number of COVID-19 cases. Senator Kennedy asked Acting Secretary Wolf for a clear answer on how many cases were in the U.S. at the time. Wolf responded with 14 domestic cases and mentioned additional cases from cruise ship repatriations. This number seemed low compared to what we know now, but it was only the beginning. Wolf's response reflected the early uncertain days of the pandemic response. Kennedy then pushed further, asking for an estimate of how many cases the government was anticipating. Surprisingly, Wolf couldn't provide a specific answer. He explained that projections were primarily being handled by the Department of Health and Human Services, not Homeland Security. This back and forth highlighted a disconnect in planning and communication. Senator Kennedy also wanted to know exactly how COVID-19 spread. Wolf explained that human-to-human contact was the primary mode, but he was short on details. Kennedy continued to press him on key statistics, like the virus's mortality rate, which Wolf said was under 2% worldwide. He admitted it fluctuated, but didn't seem fully confident on these numbers. The lack of solid information from Homeland Security on such critical data points became a recurring issue in the hearing. Next, Kennedy brought up respirators and face masks, asking if the U.S. had enough for a potential outbreak. Wolf said his main focus was to ensure DHS personnel had the protective equipment they needed. For the general public, though, he admitted there likely weren't enough masks. These supply chain concerns were early indicators of the shortages the world would soon face. Kennedy also questioned how well DHS was working with HHS and the CDC to keep the public safe. Wolf highlighted DHS's involvement in a task force led by HHS but faced scrutiny for not having fully aligned data. He also shared that a vaccine was expected in several months, which contradicted some CDC information. Kennedy made it clear that these mixed messages were concerning and pressed Wolf to ensure DHS was getting accurate information to the public.
Again, we're working with HHS to determine that.
How many are you anticipating?
We do anticipate the number will grow. I don't have an exact figure for you, though.
Do you have an estimate? Is someone modeling that? Do you have any way of guessing?
Again, HHS, through their medical professionals,
Well, yes, sir, but you're head of Homeland Security,
Yes, sir.
and your job is to keep us safe.
Yes, sir.
Do you know today how many the experts are predicting?
We only know that, again, we anticipate those numbers to grow in the U.S. That's why we're making sure that our operations, again, at our airports, land ports, and elsewhere are flexible.
But you can't tell us how many your models are anticipating.
No, Senator. Again, I would defer you to the Health and Human Services for that.
Okay. Don't you
CDC.
think you ought to check on that
We will.
as the head of Homeland Security?
Absolutely. And again, we have task force members that are working this on every day.
I'm all for committees and task
So
forces.
we're coordinating with them to make
But
sure that
you're-
our
You're the
operations.
secretary. I think you ought to know that answer.
I understand that.
How is the coronavirus transmitted?
Through a variety of ways. Obviously, human to human, we've seen that. And again, we're making sure that those procedures, as they come into the U.S., are medically screened so that we can identify those
How
folks.
is it transmitted?
A variety of different ways, Senator.
Tell me what they are, please.
Again, human to human is what we've
Well,
primarily
obviously, human to
seen.
human. How?
Being in the same vicinity, physical contact is usually what we've seen from the medical cases that we've seen here in the U.S. We've had several, I think 2 to 3 human-to-human cases that have showed up here in the U.S. So it's those that are closest to those individuals that have that human contact.
But you don't know the mortality rate today.
It changes daily, Senator.
Well, I understand that.
Given
What's
about
the average since we discovered the virus?
Again, it's under 2%. It was as high as 3. Numbers were recalculated based on reporting
Is
from
it
China.
between
and
1.5 and 2?
It's between 1.5% and 2%.
Okay, what's the mortality rate for influenza over the last, say, 10 years in America?
It's also right around that percentage as well. I don't have that offhand, but it's
sure
right around
that?
2% as well.
You sure of that?
It's a little bit, yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have enough respirators?
To my knowledge, we do. I'm focused on making sure that our operators at DHS make sure that they have the protective equipment. I know HHS, as part of the supplemental,
Well, we just heard testimony that we don't
testimony from,
in a briefing.
okay,
So you're head of Homeland
for
Security.
medical professionals or for sorry, I
You're
don't
head of
understand the
Homeland
question.
Security. Do we have enough respirators or not?
For patients, I don't understand the question.
For everybody, every American who needs one who gets the disease.
Again, I would refer you to HHS on that.
Mr. Secretary,
My
you're,
budget
you're
supports
supposed to keep us safe.
my budget supports the men and women
You're
of the
the
Department of Homeland
Secretary of
Security.
Homeland Security,
Yes, sir.
and you can't tell me if we have enough respirators.
What I would tell you is that the budget, my budget, our operations are focused not only on the men and women of DHS, making sure they're protected to do their jobs, to screen individuals coming in. We're working with HHS,
You don't know.
CDC, and their
You don't know
budgets
the answer, do you?
to ensure that they have enough medical
Do
equipment.
we have enough face masks?
We, for the Department of Homeland Security, we
I'm
do.
not asking for the Department of Homeland Security.
you looking-
I'm asking for the American people.
For the entire American public?
Yes.
No, I would say probably not.
Okay. How short are we?
I don't have that number offhand, Senator. I will get that for you.
Okay. But I want to be sure I understand. Somebody
Yes, sir.
is doing modeling
Yes, sir.
on how many cases we're anticipating. You're
Yes,
just
sir.
not aware of that.
You're asking me a number of medical questions that
I'm asking you
CDC
questions
and
because you're
HHS
Secretary of
are
the
focusing
Department
on.
of Homeland Security, and you're supposed to keep us safe.
Yes, sir.
And you need to know the answers to these questions.
And
How far away are we from getting a vaccine?
in several months.
Well, that's not what we just heard testimony about.
Okay.
Who's on first here?
HHS is
What's
the
on
lead
second?
federal agency for the coronavirus response.
You're telling me we're months away from having a vaccine. That's your testimony as Secretary of Homeland Security.
What I have been told by HHS and CDC, yes.
And have you probed that to make sure that's accurate?
Yes. We continue, every day we have task force meetings with those individuals and elsewhere talking about a number of these
Well, your
issues.
numbers aren't the same as CDC's.
Then I would certainly defer to CDC on our medical questions.
Well, don't you think you ought to contact them and find out whether you're right or they're right?
We're in contact with them every day on our task force.
But you don't know why
planning
you have a
forum.
discrepancy.
I would refer you to the CDC on
Mr.
specific
Secretary,
questions.
I'm going to hush here. You're supposed to keep us safe, and the American people
Senator-
deserve some straight answers on the coronavirus. And
Senator,
I'm not getting them from you.
I
That's
disagree.
all I have, Madam Chair.
In summary, this hearing exposed critical gaps in communication and preparedness within the government's pandemic response. Senator Kennedy's questioning revealed that while agencies like DHS were involved, there was confusion over roles, responsibilities, and resources. The exchanges underscored the importance of clear communication, strong coordination, and above all, accountability when public health is on the line. So, what do you think? Could more transparency and collaboration in early 2020 have made a difference? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button on Capital Insights to stay updated on deep dives into important issues just like this one. Thanks for watching, stay informed, and I'll catch you in the next video.